Past simple, past continuous, and past perfect. Today we're going to talk about these three tenses and how to use them. More importantly, not separately, but together when telling a story. Hey everybody, how's it going? Thiago here, and welcome to another episode of the podcast. In case you're new here, I've created this podcast and YouTube channel to help intermediate and advanced learners of English communicate with more confidence, more accuracy, more clarity, and more awareness. If this sounds like something you want for yourself and your English, subscribe to the channel and follow the show on Spotify and Apple Podcasts so you don't miss a single new episode. And if you're looking for a safe environment to practice speaking English with, I have great news for you because next month in August 2024, the first group of my Conversation Club is officially starting. This is a group that I'm creating to bring together learners of English around the world to practice speaking about interesting topics week after week. We're going to have classes once a week, every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. BRT, that's Brasilia time, and this group is open only for intermediate speakers of English upwards, okay? So you need to be at least a B1 level speaker to be able to participate because all the classes happen fully in English, okay? Isn't that awesome? I'm going to be there with you live every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. BRT and bringing you a topic that you guys are discussing together. And then at the end of every session, you get to have feedback from me about your English speaking. So if you want to learn more about the Conversation Club, how it works, how you can join, the link is in the description of the video here. Is the first link in the description box and also as a pinned comment below here on YouTube. If you are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, just go to the show notes of this episode and the link is there. Go to the page. There is a video presentation that I've made there talking all about the Conversation Club. So watch the video, read all the information on the page, and if it makes sense to you, if you are available at this day and time, you can join. Very important information. The spots are limited because I can't accept everyone, okay? I have to keep control of the group. So once the number of spots are filled, the enrollment is automatically closed. And then you're going to have to wait only until next year when I open the next group, okay? So if it makes sense to you, don't wait too long to enroll, okay? That's why I'm already advertising it now at the beginning of July because the spots will be filled pretty quickly, okay? And if by any chance you cannot participate in the Conversation Club now, for whatever reason, don't forget to check out my pronunciation course. This is a course that is available now on pre-sale. You can buy it at a very special price to learn more about pronunciation. Also, link in the description and in the show notes. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the past tenses here. So the first past tense that we have is the past simple. We use the past simple to talk about finished actions in the past, things that are already finished, and we know exactly when they finished. We usually use regular and irregular verbs in the past. So remember, the regular verbs are the ED verbs like walked, talked, for example, and the irregular verbs are the ones that change completely, like ate, went, wrote, you know? Here are some examples. I visited Paris last year. You see, I visited, that's a regular verb, ED, and last year, the time is specific. He played tennis every Saturday. Again, we have a regular verb here. He played tennis every Saturday. That's a repeated action in the past. She was a doctor for 10 years. I'm using the verb to be here in the past. She was a doctor for 10 years. All right? Also remember that in the negative form, we need to add the auxiliary didn't or did not. And then we don't change the main verb. So I say, I didn't go, not I didn't went. They didn't do, not they didn't did. All right? And if you want to ask a question, you need to use the auxiliary did before the subject. Did you work? Did you play? Again, the main verb remains unchanged. I don't say, did you worked or did you played? No. Okay? Now, what about past continuous? We use past continuous when we talk about an action that was in progress in the past, that was still happening. It wasn't finished. Okay? The construction here is verb to be in the past. So we have was and were, plus the main verb in the ing form. So I was doing, I was working, I was cooking. Okay? For example, I was cooking dinner when you called. I was cooking dinner when you called. You see, so we have here the past continuous. I was cooking dinner. That action was in progress. When you called. When you called, that's a past simple statement. So when you called, when that happened, my cooking got interrupted. So that's one use of past continuous with past simple. All right? When one action gets interrupted by a past simple action. I was cooking dinner when you called. What about this one? They were watching a movie at 8 p.m. You see, they were watching a movie at 8 p.m. So we understand that at 8 p.m., the movie was not over. It was not finished. They were in the middle of the movie. They were watching a movie at 8 p.m. And you can also say, it was raining all day yesterday. That's another use. It was raining all day yesterday. All right? Finally, we have the past perfect. The past perfect is what I like to call the past of the past, or the super past, because it's a past action that happened before another past action. Usually, the primary past action, we say it in the past simple, and then the action before that, we say it in the past perfect. For example, I had already eaten when they arrived. So I have my primary point in the past here, when they arrived. That's simple past. Before that, what happened? They ate. So I say they had, or I had, already eaten when they arrived. Okay? So the eating happened before they arrived. What about this one? She had lived there for 5 years before moving. So I have a past event. Maybe I'm talking about her experience living in London. You know, she doesn't live in London anymore. Yeah? So that experience is already in the past. But then I can say she had lived there for 5 years before moving. Okay? And the structure for the past perfect, we use had or hadn't plus the past participle. All right? So I have had eaten, for example, or hadn't gone. So it's that third column of the verbs, right? So go, went, gone, eat, ate, eaten. Okay? But here's the interesting part, how to use these three past tenses, especially when telling a story, how to use them together. This is very simple, guys. It's not as hard as it seems, okay? I'm going to try to tell you a story now. Listen to my story and tell me what you think, okay? Here it is. Last weekend, I went to the mall. Then I went to the restaurant. Then I saw a movie. Then I got tired and went back home. That's a story that I'm telling you about my weekend, last weekend. But is that a good story? Not really, right? It's kind of boring. Why is it boring? Because I'm just using past simple. And I'm just describing a sequence of events to you in chronological order. That's why it's boring. You see, last weekend, I went to the mall. Then I went to a restaurant. Then I saw a movie. Then I got tired and went home. So it's not exciting because it's just a chronological sequence of events. So that's the first thing that you have to keep in mind. Whenever you tell a story in the past or describe an experience in the past, use the past simple tense to advance the story. Okay? The past simple tense advances the story. It goes from one event to the next, to the next, to the next. Okay? But as you just saw, telling a story only using past simple is boring. So how can we make the story a little bit better, a little bit more interesting? By using the other past tenses together, the past continuous tense and the past perfect tense. So let's include here past continuous first, okay? So last weekend, I went to the mall. I got hungry, so I went to a restaurant. When I was waiting in line to get my food, I saw a crazy man standing on top of a table. He was dancing and shouting. What happened here? I started with my main event, my primary event. Last weekend, I went to the mall. Then I went to the next event. Then I got hungry and I went to a restaurant. But here in my second event of the story, I stay here a little bit more and I want to give you more details about what was happening when I went to the restaurant. These details I give using past continuous because all these things were happening at that time, at that moment, while I was at the restaurant. Remember, I went to the restaurant. While I was waiting to get my food, you see? So that was past continuous already. I was waiting. I saw a man who was standing on top of a table. He was crazy. He was dancing and shouting. You see? So now the story becomes more interesting because I'm giving you more details about that specific event. I'm telling you what was happening. It's like you are there with me, right? And you can see the crazy man standing on the table, dancing and shouting. Okay? Now, what if I want to add past perfect to this story? Check it out. Going back to the beginning. Last weekend, I went to the mall. Then I got hungry because I hadn't eaten anything for 2 hours. So I went to a restaurant. What happened here? Now I am giving you some history, some context to enrich the story. So I went to the mall and then I got hungry. But you see, instead of immediately going to the next event of my story, which is going to the restaurant, I want to tell you why I was hungry. It's because before that moment, before that time, I hadn't eaten anything for 2 hours. That's why I got hungry. You see, now you have more context, more explanation to what was happening. You see? Then I went to the restaurant, and then I saw the crazy man who was standing on the table, on top of the table, and screaming and shouting. Got it? So that's the main use of these three past tenses here. Remember, the past simple always advances the story. It's one event after the next, after the next. Okay? The past continuous is when you want to stop at one event specifically and you want to add more details about what was happening during that event. Okay? And past perfect is when you want to give more context, more history to that specific event, something that had happened before that event. Okay? And to conclude here, guys, I have some more examples of sentences to give you. So look, she had studied for hours before the test. Imagine the test was yesterday. So the test was yesterday. That's my primary point in the past. The test was yesterday. What happened before that? Or what had happened before that? She had studied for hours before the test. Okay? Or we were driving to the beach when the storm hit. Again, that idea of one action being interrupted by another action. Usually the action that interrupts is the simple past action. Okay? And the action that gets interrupted is the past continuous action. So what was happening? We were driving to the beach when the storm hit. So the storm kind of interrupted our pleasant drive, for example. Look at this one. Imagine I'm telling you a story about two best friends, okay? So I can start my story with something like this. Once upon a time, there were two best friends who loved each other. They were always together. But then after high school, they went their separate ways. Finally, one day, they met again. Now, they hadn't seen each other for 10 years since high school. You see? So I have my primary past moment. They met again one day. Before that, they hadn't seen each other for 10 years. All right? Another example we have here, he ran a marathon last weekend. This is straightforward, past simple, finished action, specific time. He ran a marathon last weekend. Okay? And finally, I had already left by the time you arrived. You see? I had already left by the time you arrived. So the person arrived. Was I there? No. Did the person see me? No, because I had already left by the time the person arrived. So the person probably did not see me leaving. This is different from saying, when you arrived, I was leaving. Or I was leaving when you arrived. You see, I was in the middle of leaving when you arrived. Chances are we probably met each other briefly. Got it? So guys, that's pretty much it. That's the difference between past simple, past continuous, and past perfect. Okay, that was a brief explanation, especially on how to use them in stories. Now, to be honest with you, one of the best ways for you to really incorporate these past tenses is by reading fiction, reading books, reading stories. Because usually when you pick up a book in English with a story, most books or most stories are told using the past tense. Okay? So let's say, for example, Harry Potter. You know, if you like Harry Potter, for example, you can pick the first book in English and you can read that book in English. And then as you read the book, as you read the story, pay attention to how the past tenses are used there. And notice, like, oh, this is a past tense structure. That's great. Oh, this is past continuous. This is past perfect. Oh, how is past perfect being used here? How is past continuous being used here? You know? So do that exercise of picking up a story in English, a fictional story, maybe a book, and reading it. And pay attention. Notice how the past tenses are used while telling that story. That's why stories are super powerful. Okay? I've already read a couple of stories here on the podcast. You can also check out the British Council website. Just go to Google, type in British Council stories. They have a bunch of free stories there online that you can also read. And as you read the stories, pay attention to how the past structures are used. Okay? And obviously, I have to tell you about this. Study some grammar along with it. Pick a grammar book or look online for some grammar exercises to further practice past simple, past continuous, and past perfect. Ideally, you want to practice them together. Okay, so find exercises that are mixed, you know? So find exercises that involve using two of them together or even the three of them together. Okay, but make sure you do that. And that's all I have for this episode, guys. I hope you found this episode clarifying and enlightening when it comes to how to use the past tenses in English. Okay? Don't forget to learn more about my conversation club if you are interested in practicing your speaking skills with me and other learners live once a week for 4 months. You gotta check out the conversation club. The link is in the description here of the video. Also, as a pinned comment down below. And if you are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you can find the link in the show notes, okay? The spots are limited, so don't take too long for you to enroll in the Conversation Club still this year, 2024. And also as an alternative, check out my pronunciation course, which is available on pre-sale. This is a recorded course that you can take the lessons at your own pace, at your own time, to learn more about pronunciation in English, connected speech, and things of that nature. So all the links are here in the description of the video and in the show notes, but do check him out. Guys, I'm signing off. I'm Thiago. Thank you so much for listening until now, and I'll be talking to you very soon in the upcoming video. Bye-bye.